All right. So good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our virtual career cafe. I am Madigan McGrath. I'm a sophomore at Ridgeway Area High School, and I'll be your moderator today instead of Amy like normal. We're recording this session and making it available for other students to view later on. So today's session is to provide you an opportunity to gain more insight and exposure into remote careers you can do from home. COVID-19 created many opportunities for employees to work from home. So today's guests have lots of different careers. We have 3 guests, and they will share their experiences to help you decide if this option is for you. So we have Aaron Rendos. He is an instructional designer from Ideal Industries. We have Ellen Russell, an HR analyst from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and Rachel Barret in sales from Flipcause. Thank you for joining us today. So does any of our employees want to go first? Little interview.
I'll go first.
Okay. So Aaron Rendos. Tell us a little bit. Rendos. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
So, like you said, my name is Aaron Rendos. I work for Ideal Industries as an instructional designer. COVID-19, as you said, kind of pushed me to get out of the teaching field. I taught at Coudersport Area High School for 19 years and just transitioned into this role in July. So I've been here about 7 months.
All right. So do you know much about your company since you don't work in person? Like, where are they located? You know?
When I was making the transition into the job, I hadn't applied or interviewed in 20 years. So that was a little bit of a learning curve for me. I had to learn a lot about the company for the interview process. So I did a lot of research on the company, what they were about. I was very adamant when moving into a remote position as to what I wanted in a new career. So doing a lot of research on the company. It's out of West Chicago, about an hour west of O'Hare Airport. We're a worldwide company. So I did a lot of research with the climate and the working conditions of the company before I applied anywhere. So I was very picky about what I wanted.
Cool. So like, what service or products do they provide? Like, what are you working towards?
So my role is a little bit different as an instructional designer. We are a tool manufacturing, especially for electricians. So we make wire nuts, conduit benders, wire cutters, whole 9 yards. Anything for electricians is what we make and create. However, I'm almost like a sub company of Ideal Industries. I work for Ivory Technologies, which stands for Ideal Virtual Reality. So I make virtual reality content for electricians. So I build the curriculum, I create the objectives for those folks. So a couple things that we try to focus on is not getting hurt. So safety is a big issue with training electricians. And 2 is waste. So anything that we train in virtual reality, the waste is very minimal in their situation. So we try to focus on those things as they're training, as the apprentices are training in their field.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never thought about virtual reality helping electricians specifically. So you said that you were a teacher before. So what did you do before that, like in high school?
So I'm actually from central Pennsylvania. Went to Brockway, which is right near Ridgeway. So after high school, went to college for teaching, had a master's degree in technology education. And I guess I just made this transition because I wanted to take my talent, skills, and abilities and see how far I could go with them in advancing my career.
Did you ever think about working like in person with the company in West Chicago, or did you always think that you would work at home?
My job is really, I don't want to say it's a hybrid, it's 10% travel, so it's not fully remote. I get to go out to the company. I usually try to go out twice a year, but it also requires travel. I go to a lot of trade shows to kind of demo our product. So I've been to Austin, Tampa, Ann Arbor, and Nova Scotia. So it's kind of taken me all over the country when previously in teaching really didn't take me anywhere.
Yeah. Did COVID affect the in-personness or lack thereof of your job, or was it just like that before?
Well, COVID, I just got this job in July, so I can only speak for the teaching part. So we were mostly in person, maybe a month or so during 2020 that we were remote, and I think that really sparked something in me that was more I need to do something else. I really like the remote work. I enjoy working from home. I know it's not for everybody. You have to be disciplined. You have to be organized to work from home to get the job done, because there are a lot more distractions at home than at work. So.
Yeah, so talking about the distractions at home, what's a typical day like? Do you still have to get up early, go to a different room, you know?
Well, I did create an office here once I went fully remote. So a typical day is very flexible. So that's what I really like about remote work is depending on when I have meetings during the day, I could start at 7, I could start at 8, I could start at 9, depending on my schedule. Or, I can work till 2, 3, 4, 5, as long as I'm getting my work done. So a typical day, 2 hours of focus time in the morning where I work on storyboards, creating job aids, instructional guides, micro learning content, infographics, video editing. I do cartoon animation from time to time. A lot more on the business side that I'm still learning as I advance my career. And then I get that flexibility. I'll go for a dog walk right around 10:30, kind of get out of the house. Most of the time in the late morning, I have internal and external meetings with MEs or subject matter experts that I work with to create content. And in the afternoon, sometimes meetings pop up here and there, but most of the time it's kind of working to get a lot of the content done to get off to the developers.
Cool. So you mentioned going on a walk. Do you have like pets or kids? Is it more difficult to stay focused?
I have both. So my dog's sitting here right now wanting to go out about that time. So yeah, it's nice to get out of the house, get some fresh air. I feel like I do my best thinking when I'm out and not engulfed in work or in a meeting. So that gives me good ideas when I'm out there and kind of getting out of this seat every once in a while, because sometimes I sit here and I lose track of time, and it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I always think it's like 9:30. So it flies by.
Do you feel isolated from your in-person coworkers, or is there like a large base of your company that's working from home?
Are a lot of besides on campus with the factory workers, everybody else is remote. So I do work with people from around the country. One of the hardest things is learning different time zones and when people are available and not for meetings. So I feel more connected as a remote employee with my coworkers than I really did in the classroom. I can honestly say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does your company offer opportunities for like virtual lunches or like coffee breaks to get to know coworkers, or is it more just all formal?
No, I set up meetings. One of the biggest things that somebody told me one time was network. Foster and grow your network within the community or the company. So I make it a point at least once a week to have like a coffee chat with somebody I haven't touched base with in a while, because as you get busy during the day, you kind of lose touch over the maybe few days or weeks with some folks. And I know we have a separate business which I really connect with. It's the DCOE, which is the marketing part of our company. So I work with the graphic designers and with them and the communications majors and all that. So I do have coffee chats with all those folks from time to time, because you never know when you're going to need them.
Yeah, that's nice. So are there like a lot of challenges offered by working at home, or do you think that you'd get more or less of the same work done if you were in person?
I feel like I get more work done from home, only because I can stay focused and I can put I usually go in chunks. So I'll go 2 hours, working, getting stuff done, and then I'll take a break. And then, 2 more hours. And it depends on my day. Sometimes I work 9 to 12 hours because there just needs to get a lot done. Other times I might have only 5 to 6 hours of work.
So it sounds like you have a really flexible schedule. That seems nice. Do you think there are like more pros than cons to working in person as opposed to working from home rather than in person?
I like the flexible schedule. It's nice for me. I like to travel. Actually, in 2 weeks, we're flying to Tampa, and I'm going to work from Tampa for a couple of days. So it kind of gets me out of the house, and I can still, have those days that I don't have to take off. Where in teaching, I had to kind of manage that schedule. And if I would have a doctor's appointment, I'd just run down to it and kind of come back, and I don't have to use up my time. So when I do get my paid time off, I use it, for me, for that time.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. So back to completely work. What's your home office setup like? I mean, do you have a bunch of monitors or?
Yeah, right now I'm running 4 monitors. So usually one's for meetings, one's for my schedule coming up, and 2 of them are for work back and forth. So one might be like storyboards, the other one might be like video editing. So I don't think my computer's fast enough to run all 4, but I do the best I can.
So were these things provided by your company, or did you just have to get them by yourself?
Oh, no, I had a wish list. I checked off everything that I wanted or needed. They sent it to me and came in the mail 3 or 4 days later.
That is awesome. It sounds like it would be hard with so many monitors and so much to do all the time to like manage technology issues. I feel like that's one of the good things about being at an like in-person kind of traditional job is that you can just walk over to the tech department. But do you have issues with technology working at home?
Not a lot of technology issues, but what we have is a great IT department, which I send it a ticket, and if it's something that I can't fix myself, they'll virtually log into my computer, go in, fix whatever they need to fix, log back out, and I can continue working. So it works really flawlessly when you have a tech issue. Now, internet issues, that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds great. I'm glad there's a good tech department. So, do you have any advice for students on how to search for remote jobs, or do you think they just kind of come to you?
Well, I know when I was first starting out with remote work, locating a job that I wanted in a position I wanted was hard. So I had to look across a couple different platforms. LinkedIn was a big platform I was looking for work, creating a LinkedIn profile. Glassdoor was another one to make sure I was getting paid what I was worth, and knowing my worth. I know a lot of people go through negotiations and figuring out what they want to make and what they want out of a job, and understanding that for yourself is very important as you're job hunting.
So, do you have anything additional that you would like to add that we haven't discussed?
I think you covered it all. I think remote work really takes just that, a lot of work. It's not, I know a lot of people have that idea that it's like sitting at home, but I work really hard during the day. Some days are really heavy, other days are really light. But if you're more of a hands-on, in-person, remote work's not for you. If you like independent work and you're very motivated to complete tasks and organize, then remote work might be something that you might be interested in.
So, are there any students that want to ask questions? You can type them in the chat. Looks like a no. So, one last question. What is the best career advice that you have ever received? Or if you haven't received any super good advice, what's the advice that you'd like to give to the coming generation?
be passionate about what you want to do. Know what you want to do, figure out what you really like to do. I know I taught careers for years on end. I even taught Ellen here that will present in a while. So figuring that out is one of the hardest parts. I've had so many people that just do it because they think they should do it, or they think their parents did it, so they do it. But find out what you're good at and pursue that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much. Would Ellen or Rachel like to step up to bat?
I can go next. I can go. I'm actually at work, so I'll have to get
Okay.
through this. Yeah. So
Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
So my name is Rachel Barret. I will preface all of this with I worked remotely for a brief time. I am no longer working remotely, but Amy still felt like I had some good insight because I actually was living in Ridgeway while I was doing it. We relocated back from Florida. So at the time when we relocated back from Florida to Ridgeway, I was working remotely for a company based out of California called Flipcause. The company itself is completely remote, so they don't even have a home office. They still say they're based out of California, but there is no building to go to. There's nowhere that you could go to do anything in person. The entire team is distributed. They are distributed actually across the entire world. So we had our teams based here in the US, but it's only a company offering services to people that live in the United States, but the company was made up of teams based all over. So we had our team based in the United States. We were based all over the US. They have a team based in India, and they have a team based in the Philippines. So there was a lot of tech support provided and a lot of things provided by individuals, tons of different time zones. The company itself actually provides software for small nonprofits. So if you start, a nonprofit mostly on making under $100,000 a year, you need a lot of technology to help that nonprofit run. This was like a suite of tools offered to those nonprofits. So if you needed fundraising software, if you needed help building a website, different things like that, mostly fundraising tools to be able to help those smaller nonprofits function, because it's very expensive to have a website designed. So it was really awesome to be able to work with a company that was a for-profit company that was working with nonprofits. My job was a partnerships manager. So basically sales, it's a fancy term for sales. So I had to do a lot of outbound calling to small nonprofits. We had a lot of data miners that would find all that information, figure out, is the nonprofit still in existence? Who's the main contact phone number? Who are you possibly reaching out to? Reaching out to those nonprofits, letting them know we exist. Most nonprofits did not know we existed. So it was really just calling, reaching out, trying to get them to just agree to do a demonstration of what our product looked like. And then, from that point on, then hopefully they would transition to work with a different team. But we were just kind of the gatekeepers to getting them to agree to even try our products for a while. So again, it involved a lot of cold calling, and I will say a lot of remote jobs are that. Aaron is very lucky. I'm sure Ellen's very lucky as well, but that is one thing. When you're starting to look for a remote job, you realize a lot of it is customer service. A lot of it is cold calling. You're not comfortable. It's an interesting mix because you have to be kind of that solitary person to be able to work at home by yourself, but also a lot of the positions require you to be a people person. You have to be comfortable reaching out. You have to be comfortable calling people that aren't expecting your phone call, or receiving phone calls and being that customer service end. So that is definitely something to consider as you're looking for a remote job.
Yeah, that's interesting. That sounds like a very important company, but not something people think of a lot. Like somebody has to do that stuff. Yes. So although you don't work there anymore, how did you get there? Like, did you take classes in high school? What did you go to college for?
So my background, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, Maine in Pittsburgh. I graduated from Ridgeway High School in 2009, went to Pitt, and then I majored there in marketing. So I have a marketing degree, and then I relocated to Florida. I was in Florida for 9 years. While I was in Florida, I actually got my master's degree in elementary education. So I have kind of an interesting mix of customer service, education, just kind of a hodgepodge of things. So that's kind of when I applied for this position. they're really interested because I do have a lot of experience with nonprofits. They were looking for individuals that had that experience with nonprofits, but also customer service, educating. I had to do, 45-minute long demos, showcasing all of the services. So it was a very unique combination of skills that were needed, but also that, willingness to, blind call 150 people in a day. It was very, it's a sales position. You're walking into a sales position, there's always goals that you have to meet. So very different than probably these other two positions.
So did you work remotely during COVID, or did you move to a different job?
So during COVID, I was actually working in person. So I had two different jobs. I was both working for two different cities. So this job was not that, but coming into this position, we knew we wanted to relocate back here, and it was kind of a perfect opportunity. But I applied for the position in May, and I didn't get hired till August. So another thing to keep in mind with these bigger, especially tech companies, there's, if it's a remote job, and if it's a remote job that you can live anywhere, that's another thing to be cognizant about when you're looking for a job. A lot of them say you have to live within so many miles of a big city, because here living in Ridgeway, we're 2.5 hours from Pittsburgh. So you had to find a position that was allowing me to actually live anywhere, not having to say remote in Pittsburgh, remote in Dallas. So when you're searching for jobs, there's a lot of them that are posted, but they want you to be within driving distance of a city, I guess, in case they call you back to an office or whatever. So it's another thing.
So when you were working it, you said that you had to do a lot of blind phone calls, but like, did you have to wake up early? Were you still on a schedule? Like, what was a day in the life like?
Yeah, so that job was very self-driven. We were given metrics that we had to meet, our minimum performance standards. There were so many demos we had to book every single month. There were so many phone calls that we were required to make every day. So it was really beneficial to kind of block out your schedule. So it was really easy. Clients booked appointments with me through Calendly, which is probably a service that a lot of remote positions use to schedule out meetings. So I had to be very careful blocking my schedule to make sure I set aside 2 hours to make my phone calls. I had to make sure I set aside a certain amount of time so that I could eat lunch. I had to, strategically leave blocks open to allow individuals that were maybe in the Pacific time zone, Pacific, I'm starting to work at 9, that's 6 a.m. there. No one's going to want to sit on a call with me at 6 a.m. But I also didn't want to work till 9 o'clock at night to allow for somebody to do it at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So it was very strategic in figuring out my schedule and actually blocking it out. And that was really the only way to get that job done, was to make sure I knew from 9 to 11, I was making phone calls. At 11:30, it was our coffee connect. At noon, I was eating lunch from 12 to 1. So I had to really schedule out my time to make sure that I was hitting what I needed to hit.
Yeah. So you mentioned the company calendar, but were there other ways that you communicated with people, or was it just emails and calendar?
So that company, again, being fully remote, they actually went fully remote before the pandemic. So they determined that it was a service and jobs that could just be done from everyone's home. So they got rid of their building in California. Prior to that, they were very much like Google. They had a office space in California with pool tables and all that. And I wasn't there for that, obviously. But they decided to not have that overhead. So they went fully remote and distributed out to everybody. So we had a lot of technology. Slack is one service that we use. It's like an instant message. So they wanted everything to stay within Slack. They really discouraged you sending direct emails. They wanted everything really to be, unless it was a private matter, they wanted everything to be public for everybody to see. So we were basically just messaging like on in a chat room. So if I had, hey, this client asked me this question and I don't know, they wanted that to be public for everybody that was in that group to be able to see in case they had an issue later. So we used Slack, we used a lot of different, there was a lot of software that I had to learn when I first got into this, because again, you're all remote. There's no home base for anything. So you had Slack for certain things. You had, top secret software that kept all your passwords. You had just different things that you had to learn. So there was a lot of programs that I didn't know existed, but it was really neat to learn.
Did you find it difficult to stay focused? Did you have pets or kids or?
So I have dogs at home. So it was always fun to have, be on a call like this with a client trying to go through my thing. And then, mailman would come and the dogs would be going crazy in the background. But that was a nice thing about being at home. I am, as Aaron mentioned, I am a very hands-on person. It was a big adjustment for me. I'm like, oh, I'll go remote and I'll be able to travel and be able to do all this. But what you don't think about working remotely is if I travel to Florida for the week, I still have to work. I still have to work 9 to 5. So it'd be my husband and my daughter are with me. And I'm like, they can be on vacation, but I still have to work. So that was another thing that I was like, oh, this was an appeal, but it ultimately didn't really work for me. But thankfully my daughter was not home. There was no children around, but my husband also works remotely. So he was upstairs, I was downstairs. That was nice to be able to have, lunch together during the day. But ultimately at the end of the day, neither of us were leaving the house for the whole week. It was a lot.
Yeah. Did you have to alert your company if you did go on vacation? And then, or is it just if you still get your work done, we don't care where you are?
So that company was really awesome in that sense. I had unlimited PTO, so I could take off. And that's another thing that a lot of these bigger companies are using. And you really kind of wonder what possibly could an unlimited PTO be, because you can't, I want to be off every day. So that was kind of, I think, like a marketing gimmick they used to kind of get people in, but I was allowed, ultimately, as long as I got my stuff done. I didn't have a set schedule. If I made my calls between 9 and 10 and I booked my 4 demos for the day and I didn't have anything for the rest of the day, I could be done. To an extent. So that was kind of what they pushed, and that was nice. And then the unlimited PTO as well. But in reality, of course, they said that, and then it was, well, we actually want you to make X amount of calls. We want you to do this, and this. So it was, get your work done. You can be done, at 10 o'clock if you want. And there was days I would call and hit four people would answer in a row, book, and I'd be like, great. And I didn't have anything else scheduled, and I could just be done at 10 a.m. It was nice.
Awesome.
That's not the reality of every day, and it is hard to also feel like you can step away when you're at work in person. You come in at 9, you're done at 5, you get to leave the building and you're done. When you're home, if I would be doing something, I'd step away for an hour, then I'd feel like, oh, I have to continue to sit at my computer till 6 because I stepped away for an hour. So it's kind of that mindset of understanding really what's expected of you from your company and managing those expectations for yourself.
So I doubt you felt isolated from your coworkers because all of you were online, but did you have a lot of virtual lunches or chances to meet other workers?
Yeah. So with this company, again, actively deciding, not being forced to be fully remote, they really had a lot of things in place to try to make it so it was a very social environment. So every morning from 9 to 9:30, we had a homeroom. So that was just our team, our partnerships managers could all come together. And that was just 30 minutes that we're on the clock, but allowed to talk about anything. Kind of, they pitched it as water cooler talk, just get on, start the day. Every Tuesday we had our coffee connects, they called them. So that was where, I'm very familiar working with all the partnerships managers, but as Aaron said, there's other people within the company that you should know because you might need them at some point. So every Tuesday there was a 30-minute block where they would randomly place you in a Zoom room with people from other departments. So I could be, I'm a partnerships manager. I could be in a room with the software engineer that lives in India. I could be with the finance director. I could be, so it just depended every week who they kind of randomly placed with you in the room with. And then that was 30 minutes where you might be talking about work. You might be asking them questions about what they do throughout the day for the company, but it also could be, did you watch the football game on Sunday? So that was a nice, nice
cool
way to connect. They definitely made sure there was opportunities for that. And then also we had a lot of training. They were very supportive as far as, we're going to ask you to hit these goals, but we're going to provide you all the training to be able to do that. So they always had trainings available throughout the day. And then we did what we called power hours. So when we were dialing, there was an hour where we could get on all together and we were just like, all right, I'm going to start dialing now. And we'd go on mute and we would just dial through we had lists of thousands upon thousands. You have no idea how many nonprofits there are in the country till you're given, 5,000 every month to kind of work your way through. So that was just another way that they tried to really make us feel connected.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you had a lot to do, but it was pretty fun. I mean, the company seems really understanding. Mm-hmm. So what was your home office like? Did they provide anything or?
Yeah, I was actually shocked with how much they provided. So I was given a standing desk. I was given a chair, 2 computer monitors, laptop, mouse, keyboard, a stand to, have a fan under my laptop. So it's basically everything I needed for my home office. And then they also provided a $75 a month, no, $100 a month stipend. So they wanted us to have the fastest internet we could have. And that is one thing Amy wanted me to mention. So working remotely, when I first moved up to Ridgeway, I was actually staying with my parents, and the internet at my parents' house was not sufficient to be able to have this job. So that is something to consider when you're working, especially in a rural area. There's a lot of amazing jobs. Of course, the pay I was getting for this job based out of California is a lot compared to some of the positions around here. But I had to actually rent office space in downtown Ridgeway to be able to do my job for the first few months because the internet was not sufficient. So that's just something, if you're living out Portland Mills or you're living, somewhere rural around here, especially some of the areas where these schools are, it's great to stay home and be in your hometown, but you have to make sure you have the internet capability. So I had to rent office space. That kind of came out of my own pocket. I had to have insurance because all of my supplies were in my office, so rental insurance for that. But they did provide $100 a month stipend for internet. And then I also was given $25 a month for just like coffee or dinner or whatever I kind of wanted to spend. They're like, you're never going to go on a business lunch or anything, but we'll, give you 25. So I would use that to purchase my lunches. So.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for students on how to search for remote jobs if they're specifically looking for one?
Yeah, so there is a lot out there. You definitely, as Aaron said as well, I found my job on Indeed. I did look on LinkedIn a lot as well. But it's just kind of knowing what you're looking for. Again, you read a lot too about like ghost jobs and things like that, and also be very aware now. A lot of these tech companies are remote, but it's that's why I'm no longer with my company. It's the mass layoffs in the tech department, so Microsoft's laying off, Uber's laying off, Twitter's laying off, it's just kind of something happening now. So being aware of what's a real job posting, kind of looking in. I've, gotten advice from people, make sure you look in and see if that company's laid off people recently, because if they have, the likelihood that they're actually hiring is very slim. So you just want to make sure you check out the company and look. But platforms like LinkedIn, make sure your LinkedIn profile, a lot of those companies are going to look at your LinkedIn profile, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's personable to you. The more recommendations you can have from previous employers, teachers, any of that on your LinkedIn profile really, really helps get those recommendations on there. And just really put yourself out there. You're going to have to write those cover letters, unfortunately. A lot of these remote jobs are getting 1,000 applicants. If you go on, you can see on LinkedIn, there's 500, 600 applicants in 2 days. You really want to set yourself apart. Now, that may not be a fancy, colorful resume, but it may have to be a really creative cover letter or something like that. So.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't discussed?
I think one of the things Amy and I talked about, we had a session last week, when you're working for these companies, mine was, of course, based out of California. I never met anybody in person. We did have situations where, of course, like I said, trying to feel like a team, really connected. But at the end of the day, to an extent, I felt like I was just kind of a person. So when a time came, and my company actually laid off our entire department. So I had only been there for a few months and I was actually still in training. And they just said, with the way the economy is going, we just decided we're going to cut the whole department. So just, keep that in mind. There's really great opportunities to work remotely and there's a lot of benefits, but there's also a lot of benefits to just, contributing to your direct community as well. One of the things Amy and I talked about last week was, even if I wanted to be a volunteer firefighter here in Ridgeway, or I wanted to join like search and rescue, that's something, if your company is not based here, they may not see the value in allowing you to do that type of stuff. So that's something, if you're really rooted in your community and want to make it better, you can absolutely have a remote job. but just maybe speak to them about ways that you want to improve your community as well, because obviously it's not based here, so you're based somewhere else and still want to contribute. So lots of things to consider.
For sure. So I will open the chat to any students or advisors who have questions. But while we wait, what is the best career advice that you've ever received, or do you have any advice that you'd like to give?
So I am somebody that obviously have 2 college degrees, and I still don't know quite what I want to do. So I just know, being out of school, goodness, 10 years now. I've been out of college almost 10 years now. Just racking up that student debt. Just make sure education is never a bad thing, being educated, but it doesn't necessarily have to be college. Make sure you're pursuing an equal amount of education for what you're passionate about. You can learn a lot without racking up so much student debt. So that's my one thing, I think, coming out of an era where everybody was college. That may not be the best thing for everybody, and you can definitely have a fulfilling career, but just make sure you know what you want to do before you dive into a college education. Make sure you're gonna use it, and make sure you're gonna feel like it's a valuable education.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Doesn't look like anybody has any questions, so Ellen, you're up.
Okay. I know we're kind of running short on time, so I'll try to make mine pretty quick. So I graduated from Countersport. I initially took kind of an unconventional career path, and I started working at our local hospital, Charles Cole at the time. Now it's UPMC Cole, in the emergency department, just as a receptionist. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do after school. So I kind of told my parents, who were honestly not super happy at the time, that I didn't want to go to college right away. I wanted to just work and see kind of where I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Working in the ER, what I initially thought my career path was going to be was nursing. Working in the ER was the best thing for me. I very quickly decided I did not want to be a nurse. So it was the best thing for me. I ended up getting my phlebotomy certification, worked in the lab for about a year, and decided to go back to school for business. I did all of my schooling online while working at the hospital full-time. In patient financial services, I had transferred to a different department as a financial counselor. So I stayed there for about 3 years. After I got my bachelor's degree in business administration, I moved and became an office manager of 3 physician practices at the hospital. I stayed with the hospital for a little over 7 years total. In the process, I also got my master's degree in business administration. Right before COVID kind of started, I made a life change for some personal reasons and took a job with our county, Potter County, as the director of community development. Nothing really changed for me as far as COVID. They sent us home for a couple of months. But then I actually went on maternity leave. I had a baby, so I went on maternity leave. So that was kind of the biggest change there. Mm-hmm. But nothing really changed COVID-wise. I stayed there for about 3 years, and then I just decided it just wasn't really a good fit for me. And so then I kind of just started looking at some other jobs, but my benefits, which is something you don't really think about in high school. But if you do start looking for a full-time job, make sure you're looking at your benefits. It's not something you're going to think about right off the bat. You're thinking about the money, and I understand that. But your benefits are a huge thing, especially if you do go directly from high school to look for a full-time job. Look at your benefits. That's what's going to set you up for kind of your life. You want to look at your retirement, your health insurance, all that kind of stuff. That's a big part of what your package is going to be as well. So I wanted something that was comparable. So to me, really nothing was going to compare to county benefits, county retirement, except for the state, which is where I'm at now, is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I wasn't necessarily looking particularly for just a full-time remote job, but everybody else in my area is based out of Harrisburg. And so they made kind of an exemption for me, because I am so far from Harrisburg, to allow me to work full-time. Most people within the state telework 3 days a week and then go into the office 2 days a week. So it just kind of works. We have morning meetings, what we call our water cooler discussions. And so we meet every morning at 8:30 and just have a little chat. So we kind of are connected. There's only 4 of us on our team. We're really small. I work in the classification and pay department. So I basically just make sure for our agencies, we cover Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and Agriculture, that the people within those positions are classified to the right position that they're performing the duties for.
Yeah.
So we just make sure basically that when they get a promotion or they're filling a vacancy that they're classified correctly. So we're pretty small. It's just the 4 of us. And I do go down to Harrisburg. I don't want to say on a regular basis, but as needed. So that kind of helps. The Commonwealth pays for all of my expenses to travel. The Commonwealth pays for all of my equipment. I have a laptop, a docking station, keyboard, mouse, extra monitors, that kind of thing, all of my supplies. I can't remember what else you asked.
Yeah, I mean, you're making your way through a lot of the questions. So do you have like a set schedule or just tasks that you have to do every day? Or
I do have a set schedule. It was flexible as far as what I chose to have it set as. The Commonwealth has what's called civil service jobs. And so you're on a probationary status for the first 6 months of your position. Once you successfully pass your probationary status, you can do what's called an alternate work schedule. Basically, you can work an extra half hour of your day and then have off every 4th Friday or every 4th Monday. So I work 7:30 to 4 and then get off a 4th Friday of the month. So it's really nice that I get an extra day off a month without having to take an extra PTO day. So I'm pretty standard throughout the month, but my day is also flexible in the fact that if I need to run to town, I can run to town. I don't have to take time just to run quickly and come back.
yeah.
I do have 2 dogs, so they're laying over there sitting nicely right now, but once in a while you hear my dog squeaking at a toy or something, and it is what it is. Anybody who had dogs kind of understands that, but sometimes you have to just lock them out of the room because it's distracting. If you have children, I do not suggest working from home with children. My toddler would be in here going, hi to everybody. So it's not a good idea. My toddler goes with my mother-in-law and that's where he goes for the day. Most jobs would actually tell you, you're not even allowed to have your kid at home because it's honestly a liability for the company, because when you're home, you're supposed to be working, kind of thing.
So at the end of the day, when you finish all your stuff, do you find it hard to like mentally switch from work mode to home mode? Like, how do you relax?
I don't anymore. When I left the hospital as an office manager, that was kind of part of why I left. I was getting calls at 5 o'clock in the morning, at 10 o'clock at night. It was really, there was no shut off. It was just all the time. And so now it's much easier for me to work is done. I shut it off and I walk out the door and I'm done. And I think especially when you work in your own home, it's a lot harder to be able to turn that off. So you really have to be very strict from when you start that I'm leaving it in this room and that it is what it is and it's done for the day. Because you associate your own home now with your job. So you have to have that really fine line.
I think we just about covered everything. Do you have any other advice that you'd like to offer anybody?
I don't think so, other than I know this was kind of touched on by Mr. Rendos and Rachel. He's always going to be Mr. Rendos to me, sorry. I don't want to knock anybody that wants a work from home job. If you want it, it's great. And I love working from home, but it takes a very special person to work from home. You need to make sure you're disciplined in what you do. you are still working from home, I guess is my point. Like you are still doing your job and you are expected to do your job. It's not a thing where you can, I work from home, like I can just do whatever I want and not expect my work to get done. Like you still are expected to do your work and do it in a timely manner. No differently than if you would work.
Aren't in the field or just in any field. People think that working from home just means getting paid to be home, but
Exactly.
no, you still have to do work.
Yes.
Okay, so if nobody else has any questions or anything you'd like to say, I'd like to thank Erin, Ellen, and Rachel for joining us today. Students, please join us next month on February 16th at 1:15. Our focus will be alternatives to engineering. Everybody, please take a few minutes to complete the post-reflection survey that your teacher will give you. You will be entered to win gift card prizes that will be given away in April after our last session. Hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
job. You did so good.